Selection of Boolean has received an immense amount of improvements over the course of this latest update, but when we initially made it, it was for Blender 2.83.12, and things changed over the course of later versions of Blender that made the tool actually degrade in performance. So to show the original version, we could press Q and go to ST3 Mesh Tools and just choose Selection of Boolean, and we can just click and we see that we're able to fluidly jump into the extrusion process, and the text is able to stick with the cursor and everything's just hunky-dory. And you can even press A to jump to make mode, or you can press A to jump back into cut mode, and that's exactly how Selection of Boolean is supposed to behave. However, let's minimize this, and now I'm actually using version 2.93, but I'm using a previous version of HardOps 987.5. If I were to go in here and actually use Selection of Boolean, we see that things will behave just a little bit differently. In fact, right now it's making a fool of me and actually performing exactly the way it's supposed to. But normally this would actually come with a considerable amount of lag. So now we actually come to the present, where I'm using my current version of Blender and my current setup, and we tab in edit mode and we select these faces and we press Q. And we go under ST3 Mesh Tools, and we can see that Selection of Boolean is performing exactly the same as it was in the previous two examples, because I just can't seem to recreate the lag that was actually happening with this. But there were issues being reported with Mac users that we were checking into, and it turned out that there were definitely some performance improvements able to be made with this, enough to the point that we were able to just simply rewrite the concept altogether. So I'm happy to announce that there's now a new version of Selection of Boolean in this version of HardOps, and no matter of what version of Blender that you're using, it should be more stable and faster than ever. So Selection of Boolean only works on derived geometry. So with this shape, if we were to shift click modifier scroll and just auto scroll, you can see that this is built up of a series of modifiers, and as we scroll through them, it's not a destructive shape, it's a non-destructive shape. So first thing we'll need to do is go in and use Smart Apply, and by Smart Applying we've now applied the base level of geometry. We just select a couple of faces and just choose Selection of Boolean, but just letting you know that it's also under Boolean, so you can go under Boolean, choose Selection of Boolean, and the first step is going to throw you into is the inset phase. So it's important to not overlap, because we haven't tried making any sort of corrections for those sort of cases. However, once you get the geometry right where you want it, which is always limited by the amount of corners you have present, you can actually click to progress into the extrusion phase. And so here we see that we were able to perform that extrusion. However, this area has some doubles that are just a little bit too close for comfort for me, and so we'll just get in and correct them. Same thing with this area. And taking a look at this, everything else appears to have came out correctly. And so to get this to show up on your side, I'll select this shape and the shape I want to mirror across, and just press Alt-X, and using the default of mirror, I'll just click on the axis I want to keep. But just like that, that's how you would use Selection of Boolean in action. However, I do see a feature where you can use Selection of Boolean to extract derived geometry from non-destructive meshes in order to continue adding on in a non-destructive fashion instead of destructively, as you've seen me do here. But more on that in the future.